Thank you all very much for taking the time to come. Good afternoon to all of you. It's my pleasure to be joined once again with County Executive Mark Poloncarz, Mayor Byron Brown. We have General Murphy. We have Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Joan McDonald, and a number of county, city officials. We thank them all for their presence. We spent the day doing two things today, accelerating snow removal. We brought in more equipment, and since there was a break in the snowfall, we used today as an opportunity to really accelerate the snow removal efforts. We believe we now have enough equipment to manage the snow removal process. That doesn't mean the snow gets removed immediately, but we have the equipment that matches the personnel to handle the snow removal process in a timely way. We're now poised to see what happens as we go forward. We've been talking about the rain and potential flooding given those conditions, and that's the next issue that we're going to have to focus on. We have had extensive discussions preparing for that. We're starting to stockpile equipment to handle potential flooding operations. That will include 425 pumps and generators, 55 boats are being brought in as we speak, 3 helicopters, 29 what they call high axle vehicles that can do rescues in about 4 to 5 feet of water, and 180,000 sandbags in case we need them. That equipment is all currently en route to Western New York, and it will be stockpiled here. If we're lucky, we won't need any of it, and then we will have just created a lot of transportation. But prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and that's what we're doing. But over the next day or two, we will be continuing to focus on snow removal. We'll be doing that as governments. We also recommend that individual homeowners take this opportunity and think about rainfall on the snow, and think about it in terms of your own premises. You want to make sure that the gutters are clear, or as clear as you can get the gutters. Heavy snow is problematic, and we're afraid of the weight of the snow plus water on roofs. Roofs collapse, buildings collapse. So to the extent the gutters can be cleaned, to the extent the drains in front of your home in the street could be cleaned so that water doesn't just run down the street and run down the driveway, but it actually goes down the drains, that would be extraordinarily helpful. Again, we're preparing for a flooding situation, but we could get lucky, and maybe that's not an issue that we're going to have to deal with. I'd just like to say one more time, I have nothing but praise and admiration for the job that the county executive and the mayor have been doing, and their teams. You're talking about public employees who have been at it for days and days and days and days, and they haven't been home, and they haven't been with their family, and they're not shoveling their driveway, they're shoveling roads so everyone else can get out of their home. They're really extraordinary in their effort, and they happen to have extraordinary leadership in the county executive and the mayor. With that, I'll turn it over to County Executive Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. As you all know, the governor and I and the mayor took a tour of certain locations in our community. I want to thank the governor for his steadfast leadership in regards to this storm. As we said, when we first realized the storm was going to be as large as it was, immediately contacted the governor, and it was like, whatever I can do for you. And when we went out on this tour earlier today, we saw some sites, especially in Orchard Park in Hamburg, that would have made a beautiful Currier and Ives print in the 1860s, but not necessarily the most enjoyable experience in 2014. And what we saw were National Guard troops on the ground in Hamburg and in Orchard Park, digging people out, cleaning out streets. We've had continued communications. We now feel very comfortable about the conditions, especially as they pertain to many of the state roads and many of the major county roads. And I've received a commitment that a lot of the materials and equipment that came in for the Department of Transportation, now that many of those roads have been cleaned from out of this area, are now going to be put in towards secondaries and other streets across Erie County. So I expect to see hundreds of new pieces of equipment in areas that had not seen that much equipment in the past. That work had been done here already, but they were working primarily on main roads, and that's what we saw when we did this tour, is that roads like 277, the 219, the Thruway were drivable. In some ways, they're actually down to the pavement, and the pavement was dry. But all you had to do was get off those roads and get to one of the secondary roads, and it was quite evident that those roads, at most, had been hit once. So I want to thank the governor for his incredible commitment. The National Guard, General Murphy, your troops are doing a wonderful job from all over the state. We met people from downstate, near Albany, Rochester, Syracuse area. We ran into some snowplow drivers from the city of Syracuse, and I just want to say to the people of New York State who've come to our help, thank you very much. It is really appreciated. Thank you.
Well said. Well said. Mayor Byron Brown.
Thank you very much, Governor. Again, I want to thank the governor for literally being embedded with us over the last 3 days, helping us with the storm response and recovery in Buffalo, Erie County, and Western New York. As the governor and county executive said, we were able to visit numerous communities today. We visited the South Buffalo community around Mercy Hospital, a very critical hospital facility that serves much of the city of Buffalo, but also the South towns as well. The National Guard troops around Mercy Hospital in South Buffalo were doing a tremendous job in removing snow. I want to thank them for that work. I had the opportunity to then go and visit with doctors, nurses, and other workers in the hospital just to thank them for what they've been doing. I saw doctors and nurses who have been working for 2 and 3 days, haven't been home for 2 and 3 days. So in addition to the men and women of Buffalo, Erie County, localities across Western New York, state workers and National Guardsmen, there are so many members of our community that are doing extraordinary work on behalf of all of us right now to respond to the storm, to recover from the storm, and to protect health and safety. As the governor said, we have been able to accelerate snow removal in South Buffalo and Kaisertown. We now have 263 pieces of snow removal equipment in South Buffalo. I want to just thank Public Works Commissioner in the City of Buffalo, Steve Stepniak, Parking Commissioner Kevin Helfer, for being on the ground coordinating that response. We have literally, with the help of state workers and the National Guard, carted over 35,000 tons of snow out of South Buffalo. So this has been a collaborative effort. This has been a very difficult storm, but an amazing response from the people of Buffalo and Western New York. Great help from people from all across the state. And Governor, we thank you so much for your great support.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you very much. Just like to reiterate, we said the Thruway was open at 3 o'clock. We said if you're going west from exit 51 to the state border, the local exits are closed. We opened the Thruway so trucks could leave, but the local exits are closed. So if you get on the Thruway headed west, all local exits up to the state border are closed. Any questions? Yes, yes. Well, how would they know the Thruway was open unless they heard it on the news? And I'm sure you did a good job in your reporting, and you said, when you said that it was open, you said the local exits are closed. No, I believe in you. I believe in you. They had to hear from you that it was open, so I'm sure you gave them the right information. Unless you're trying to tell us something that there was a mistake in the road. All right, then we're okay. As long as you made one of those fancy maps, we're not going to have an issue. Plus, they'll see that you literally can't get off. You'll see the exit is blocked. And then you go to Pennsylvania and you make a U-turn and you come back. Worst comes to worst. And they'll blame you for your fancy map. Yes. Yes. Well, I think people who locally, I think we, as you heard from the county executive and the mayor, we spent quite a bit of time just visiting and driving around today. People are shopping today. Many people can walk to shop, and they were, which was difficult because the streets, they're impossible to drive on. They're also hard to walk on. But I'm sure people have been doing shopping today, tomorrow, which is prudent. But well, there's a driving ban in some towns still. There's a driving ban in the city still. And the thruway is effectively for essential travel. And I've also said repeatedly that unless you have to be driving, you shouldn't be driving. I mean, some of these roads are really, really treacherous. You need groceries, I understand that. But anything other than essential use, I wouldn't recommend to anyone. That is a good question. I do not know. Where would you get a county towed or city towed car back?
If your car has been towed in the city, only in the city of Buffalo, call 311. If you live outside of the city, please do not call 311. We are making preparations to help people find their cars. We are currently working with a number of residents now whose cars have been towed in the city of Buffalo to help them locate their vehicles. Vehicles that have been located that are owned by people that physically live in South Buffalo, we are asking them not to pick up their vehicles now because the driving ban is still in effect in the city of Buffalo.
For the county, the vast majority of them that were towed off-site from the location where they were towed to the old Apple Tree Mall parking lots. But many vehicles were not towed there, they were just moved to the side. So when it comes to an actual, where is my car right now, I can't answer that question for the person. We are putting together that information right now. Truthfully, we've been spending just as much time trying to respond to the storm and be prepared for the potential flooding than to develop a database that we can immediately release to the public of where a particular vehicle is. We have that information. Every time a vehicle was towed, the tow truck operator is required to basically produce a ticket, a report for Erie County of the vehicle make, model, license plate number, and where it was moved, which may actually have been 15 feet to the side, or it may have been to the Apple Tree Mall parking lot. As was noted, there are driving bans in still many communities. While some have been lifted, there are driving bans still in others, and it's quite possible that if you think your vehicle you can drive it, it's probably on a road where you may not even be able to drive it yet, because there are still vehicles abandoned on roads, not only ones that are semi-passable now, but ones that we haven't had an opportunity to get to. So I would say to folks, I know they're very, very anxious to get their vehicle back. We are in the process of compiling that list, and we'll hopefully have it out shortly. Well, I guess we have some good news, is that, as many of you have heard, we appear to have had a resurrection, as it's being called. a little strange, but the New York State Department of Health had reported to us that 2 of the individuals at the Garden Gate facility had passed. They actually had a DOA listing for 2 at the hospital. Turns out one of them that was listed at DOA actually had not died. And we found that out about 4 hours ago. I don't know how the information went to the New York State Department of Health that the person had died, and they actually had the separate name and the age and the number for the individual, but somewhere along the line the individual had not died, so we're thankfully calling it the resurrection of one individual. So there are 12 official deaths. Can I state there are no other bodies potentially in a vehicle somewhere in this county? No, I can't state that. I was hopeful we would not have to worry about that, but as you know, we announced that additional death this morning of an individual who was found in a vehicle. So what I'd like to say is the answer is no. When we did the tour, I was very pleased to see that if vehicles were still abandoned along the side of the road, and they were, every one of the vehicles you could see, the window had been scraped off, which means a rescue personnel had gone up to that vehicle, scraped off the window to look and see if there was actually anybody in there. So what I would reassure the public is if a vehicle has been abandoned on a thoroughfare, it's in all likelihood there are no individuals in there because they've been checked by emergency personnel. The unfortunate case that we talked about earlier this day, in which the individual was found on Innsbrook Road in Cheektowaga off of Union Road near the Costanza's Bakery, where many people know that is, the vehicle was actually deep in a parking lot. And unfortunately, I don't believe emergency personnel had the opportunity to check it, probably because they didn't see it. It just sort of fit in and looked like it was under it could have been a hedgerow. So hopefully we never have another situation like that.
You know, we've been doing both all throughout this. We've spent a lot of time planning together, coordinating together. This has been very much a joint enterprise in everything we've done, so we've spent a lot of time in the Emergency Operations Center. But we've also been out and we've also been talking to people. What the joy I find, as I mentioned this morning, the light in the midst of the darkness is how great people can be in really dark, terrible times. And we've been talking about the public employees who've done an extraordinary job. We've been talking about New Yorkers and the outpouring of love for Buffalo and support for Buffalo. And then you have a situation like the group home where a woman came into work on Monday morning for an 8-hour shift, and she's still there. Just with a smile and happy, and was entertaining people in the group home, and you say, you know, what a beautiful individual. What character, what energy, what resilience. And she wasn't annoyed at anyone, and you know, people can surprise you. People can surprise you, and sometimes we forget that as New Yorkers, you know. We go about our daily work, and we have a reputation for being tough New Yorkers. That may be true, but we are also a giving, loving, community-oriented people. And you see the best in people at the worst of times. And we've seen that. Can you speak a little louder, please? I wouldn't say anything that was upsetting. The magnitude of just the amount of snow and the magnitude of the challenge and the breadth of it, it's nothing that we haven't talked about. Seeing it is obviously different. And this has been a massive deployment wherever you go. You see National Guard troops, you see equipment working. So seeing it in reality is a little different than talking about it. But nothing I would say has been disturbing.
The National Guard has been there for several days. The state used resources in before the snow even started. And we've seen those assets in South Buffalo and Cheektowaga and West Seneca. But some leaders in the South Town say they have not gotten those resources. They didn't start getting them until last night. Some DOT clouds came in and some other things. They're seeing it today. What was the delay in getting outside resources into Orchard Park, East Aurora,
Yeah, there was no delay. The assets were deployed on a priority basis, and the priority was public safety, public health. So you look at the geographic area, you identify the highest priority needs as public safety, public health, access routes to bring essential goods in, and that's where you deploy your equipment. So if a plow was not on your block, that's not a personal slight. It's just that your block does not happen to be a high priority area from a public safety or a public health point of view. And that's how we deployed the equipment. It didn't go by neighborhood, or it was all prioritization of public safety, public health, and then you just work your way down the list. And if the plow came yesterday, that's because that's when they got to that priority level.
We're not talking about streets or neighborhoods, we're talking about entire towns that say they got nothing until last night. Maybe the county executive wants to address this as well. If these areas got resources and why it took so long, considering we know how much equipment was in the area from outside.
Well, there was a lot of equipment, especially as it pertains to state roads, and I've had this conversation with Commissioner McDonald. As the governor said, public safety, public health, we could not get to some of these secondary roads or even at areas of particular towns until major routes were closed. I'll give you a good example, Hamburg. Hamburg, two major routes, well, three. You got the Thruway, you got Route 5 and Route 20, and they were both a mess, all three a mess. And you can't get to some of the areas in Hamburg and Evans until you actually open up Route 5 and Route 20. I know in the city of Lackawanna, we were dealing with calls for the National Guard, and what ended up happening is people were saying, why aren't the National Guard in plows? Well, I know the National Guard were in plows because there were National Guard in 6 Humvees driving all around the city of Lackawanna, picking up medicine and taking individuals to hospitals. Now, some people might say our number one priority is getting my street plowed. I look at it, the number one priority is keeping our citizens alive. And we have lost 12 citizens. We may have lost more if the National Guard was not going out there and delivering medicine to individuals who needed it, or moreover, taking them to hospitals that could not be reached otherwise. Until yesterday, we still did not feel we could get individuals from the South Towns to Mercy Hospital. They were all going to the MAC in Orchard Park. We know we can get them there now, but until then, we couldn't. We had to shuttle people from a vehicle, and sometimes to a snowmobile or a four-wheeler, and then to a Humvee just to get them into a hospital. So our number one priority, as the governor said, was public health, public safety. And if that meant that National Guard troops were not shoveling and plowing, but actually in Humvees delivering medicine and taking people to hospitals, then I can live with that.
So geographically, it was tough getting these resources to the second main suburb.
And that's what is being done now. When we were out there, we saw the National Guard plowing roads in Orchard Park. We saw them working in Hamburg. We saw DOT. We saw, I think I saw it was a Pennsylvania truck going down the road in Hamburg. So I think what people need to understand is now that the mains have been opened, and the state ones as well as the county, almost all of the county mains are open where you've got a lane on each side. It doesn't mean it's easy travel, and I'll give you a good example. Lake Avenue. Lake Avenue's had work done on it, but it's like driving on the lunar moon in some ways. Actually, I guess that's duplicative. It's like driving on the moon. So I would say to folks, now that the main arteries have been cleared, it's incumbent upon us to focus on those secondaries and those side streets, which we're starting to do now.
If I can make a point too?
Yeah, please.
If I can just make a point on that. So the governor and the county executive and I went to Mercy Hospital. And I had the opportunity to tour Mercy Hospital with its president, C.J. Erlab, and the patient census at Mercy Hospital was just about full. They were almost at capacity, and those patients came from Buffalo, but they also came from the South Towns. So it was critically important that routes to the hospital be opened up so people could get the critical care that they needed. So that was an area of priority that we focused on very closely.
There is an emergency manager call every 12 hours, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Oh, yes, but I will talk about that off camera.
Yeah, two quick points if I can, just to piggyback on what the county executive and the mayor said. This was not primarily a street clearing operation. This was a protection of human life and public safety operation. So it had nothing to do with outer ring suburbs. Health patients, people who needed dialysis, transporting staff for a hospital, that was job one, whether you were in Orchard Park or in the city of Buffalo. If you needed dialysis and it was a matter of life and death, we got help to you first. That was the prioritization. Clearing the roads, qua clearing the roads, was frankly a secondary concern. And even when it came to roads, it was those roads you need from an access point of view for health and safety. Roads around hospitals, et cetera. Yes, I've dealt with FEMA. In a prior life, I was a federal official. At Department of Housing and Urban Development, I worked a lot with FEMA. We were HUD and FEMA worked together. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with FEMA, not all of it good. And we've done Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Sandy, ice storms with FEMA since I've been governor. They have very strict formulas, and unless you meet their formulas, you don't qualify. As I mentioned this morning, I spoke with the White House. President Obama sends his regards. He's been concerned. He's followed what's been happening in Buffalo. They want to be very helpful. They told FEMA to be very helpful. We'll still have to meet those thresholds. And I believe, considering this one incident and aggregating costs for the one incident, snow and any flooding that happens, and again, we hope it doesn't, but if it does, aggregating those costs will give us the best chance of meeting the FEMA threshold. If you consider it two separate incidents, I don't believe we have any chance of meeting the FEMA threshold. So I consider it one incident. Okay, thank you all very much.